You never heard of TNT? Are you kidding me? Hey guys, welcome back to the Bald Shredder channel. So today I'm going to talk about 5 guitar players that I feel are always kind of flying under the radar when people are talking about, the best, the greats, who were the awesome guitar players from the 80s. And these guys just don't get mentioned enough. And I really think that you guys out there need to check them out because these guys are phenomenal. Alright, so what prompted me doing this video is that I was chatting with one of my viewers, a nice young lad out of Scotland, and he sent me a message one day and he was like, hey, you ever heard of the band White Lion and the guitar player Vito Bratta? Wow, he was really good. And I was like, I grew up in the 80s, so of course I know White Lion and Vito Bratta. And then I asked him, hey, so since you think White Lion is pretty cool, what about TNT? Have you heard of TNT? And he was like, no, TNT? Never heard of them. Now, I can't blame him for that because he's a younger guy. He didn't grow up in the 80s like I did. So for a lot of you guys, maybe you were born in the 80s or born in the 90s, or even later, maybe, you didn't have the benefit of, being alive when these guys were on the radio and on MTV and in the magazines and stuff. And now you kind of have to rediscover them through YouTube, Spotify, internet things, whatever. So since I know that's the case, I kind of want to bring a little spotlight to 5 guys that I think just deserve more attention. Okay, so of course we're going to start with TNT, Ronnie Letecro. What an amazing guitar player. And the band, great singer, great songs, amazing guitar playing. Ronnie Letecro is one of those guys where when I hear a solo and he's playing it, it's instantly known. It's instantly known that that's Ronnie Letecro. He has such a unique style of playing, such an excellent pick attack, melodic yet fiery, just very good. And I have to say, the singer in TNT, Tony Harnell, probably one of my all-time favorite singers. Just a great voice. In fact, I met him about 10 years ago at the NAMM show. It's the one and only time I met him, and it was one of those moments, meeting one of your heroes. Super nice guy. Alright guys, up next is guitar player John Norum. Europe guitar player John Norum. You know him. It's the final countdown. Yes, he plays on that song, on that album, that guy. But I don't want to talk about a Europe album. I want to talk about one of John Norum's solo albums that came out in 1992. It's called Face the Truth. And on that album, he's got Glenn Hughes singing. So, great vocals, great riffs, great songs, great guitar playing, and just phenomenal from start to finish. And I remember at the time reading about the album because it was released in Europe before it got released here. And I remember he said before they put out the American release, he went back into the studio and added even more guitars to the songs to make it sound bigger and better and just more shreddy, I guess. Alright, the next guy, Bruce Boyer. Sound familiar to any of you? Bruce Boyer was the second guitar player in Racer X with Paul Gilbert. Crazy talented. He was doing all those crazy stuffs with Paul Gilbert. They were doing them in harmony. Amazingly talented guy. He played on the second Racer X album, which was called Second Heat, and then the one right after that, which was called Extreme Volume, which was a live album. But what I really want to talk about is the album that he released after that in his next band, which was called The Scream. And the album was called Let It Scream. That was released in 1991 and featured vocalist John Corabi. Yes, John Corabi, that would go on to be the lead singer in Motley Crue for a while. So The Scream, Let It Scream, great album, great production, great riffs, great singing, great songs, phenomenal guitar playing. I really think this is where Bruce really shined as a guitar player because he was no longer in the shadow of Paul Gilbert. He was the only guitar player in the band. This was his band, and he really kind of came out as his own guy on that album. Different from the Racer X stuff, but just great. Up next, we've got Akira Takasaki from Loudness. Okay, you're saying, I know Loudness, I've heard of that guy. I remember, Crazy Nights, maybe Let It Go. But did you ever hear the album that they released in 1989 called Soldier of Fortune? I feel like this album is criminally Underrated. Just a great album, just a great hard rock, heavy metal album with great riffs, just blazing guitar work by Akira. Okay, and last but not least, guys, I'm gonna talk about guitar player Doug Aldrich. Now, you've probably all heard of Doug. He's played in a lot of bands, Whitesnake, Dio, House of Lords, but I don't want to talk about those bands. I want to talk about the band that he was in before all that, and it was a Los Angeles band called Lion. And in 1987, they released their album Dangerous Attraction. And I remember seeing the video for Power Love on MTV, and I was like, whoa, who is this? That's cool. I remember he had a white Jackson soloist with a Kahler bridge on it, and I was, that immediately drew my eyes. And then, okay, and then it was the song, then it was the riffs. I was like, well, that's cool. And then it came to the solo, and I was like, that guy's good. And I remember at the time I bought the cassette. So I had the cassette of the album, and I played that thing. I wore that out. Just such great guitar playing, and it really showed, that it's not surprising that he went on to bigger and greater things, and he's still out there doing stuff because he's just a phenomenal player. Now, in that band, Lion, the name of the singer was Cal Swan, and I remember, this is kind of funny, at the time, I got the cassette, and I went over to one of my buddies' house, a guy named Kevin. He was a year younger than me in school. He played bass guitar, and we hung out a lot. And I was like, hey, you gotta check out this band called Lion. And he put the tape in his little stereo player there, and he started playing it, and he was listening, and he was like, dude, that guy's got a loser voice. If I asked him today, he probably wouldn't even remember saying that, but that always stuck in my head because it's just such a funny way to describe a singer's voice, a loser voice. So, and I think the reason he said that, because Cal's voice is a little bit different than the typical hard rock singers, a little bit deeper in tenor. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it. I always think of Cal's voice like, the singer Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers? What would Michael McDonald sound like if he tried to be a hard rock singer? And that's kind of how I view the way Cal's voice sounds. So yeah, it's kind of not for everyone. All right, so those are the 5 guys that you need to check out. Go down in the description, listen to those songs. If you like that, find other songs on the album, find them on Spotify, wherever you listen to music, check them out. It's some really good stuff. And I'd really like to hear from you guys in the comments after you listen to that stuff. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Maybe you're already familiar with a lot of that stuff, and just give me your thoughts on that. And maybe there's some other guys, not the 5 guys that I mentioned, but other guys that just don't get very much attention, that they're really kind of under the radar, and you're like, man, that guy's so good. He deserves more recognition. Let me know who those guys are too. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.